So how long does your workout really need to be if you're trying to build muscle? Well, rather than the 45 minutes to an hour that most people think they need, it's actually more along the lines of as little as 10 to 15 minutes. Let me explain. Now, I've been training to build muscle since I was 18 years old, really before that. But in an official capacity, as far as a fitness coach, that journey pretty much started along the lines of 18 years old. And I've experimented with a lot of different training mechanisms. And typically, whenever I deploy a particular strategy, I typically test it out for around 8 to 12 weeks, give or take, or at least 4 weeks to see how well it actually works. I've trained for 45-minute sessions, hour-long sessions, even an hour and a half. But one of the most important and earth-shattering things, at least for me personally, was realizing that my workouts, I can cut the amount of training volume by anywhere from 70 to even 80%, and still see the same amount of growth, if not more. Now, what it started with was me doing workouts where they were around 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes at the most. And what I would do is I would go for a particular rep total. A rep total meaning that you did a particular exercise with a set amount of weight, and you got to, let's say, 25 reps, or I would go to 25 reps. And however many sets it took me to get to that 25 reps, well, that's just how many sets it took. It could be 6 sets, 5, 4, or 3 sets. And what I would do is I would establish rules, right? And so the rules were choose a weight where you can get anywhere from 12 to 15 reps in one set. So for the first set, you go all out, you do as many reps as you can until you get to your limit, which would typically be in between that 12 or 15, let's say 14 reps or 13 reps, somewhere around there. And then the second set, you'd probably be able to crank out a few more. So I would typically be able to crank out, let's say 4 more reps, maybe 5 or 6. The second set was only a rest period of 15 seconds in between. So after that first set going all the way out, I would rest 15 seconds and then go back into the exercise and crank out a few more reps. So let's say if the first set, I was able to get to 14 reps. The following set, I would be able to tack on an additional 4 reps or so that would bring me up to 18 reps. Third set, after a 15-second rest, I was only able to get around 2, maybe 3 more reps. So that would bring me to around 21 or something like that, maybe 22. And then the fourth set, maybe I can get to that 25, or maybe just fall 1 rep short. And so the goal would be is using that same weight. I don't need to change the weight, lower it, raise it, or anything like that. But the following week, the goal would be to reach that 25 reps in less sets. And the goal would be, if I was able to get to that 25 reps within 3 sets, that I could increase the weight by 5%. That's how it started. Right? So I had this whole rep total thing going on. And interestingly enough, those workouts would take me around 30 minutes. And that's when I realized, wow, I can cut my training time in the gym in half. So rather than training for an hour, or maybe even like an hour and 10 or 15 minutes, I can cut it down to 30 minutes. And since then, and that was around 3, maybe 4 years ago that I started doing that. I posted videos about it on my YouTube channel in the past. And what I've been doing ever since then was figuring out ways to train more efficiently and be able to finish my training in less time and be able to achieve the same amount of results, if not better. And I've been able to do that. Now, there's a few options, but basically in the grand scheme of things, for me, what I've noticed is you really only need about 50 to 60 minutes of training per week. So what that would look like is that can be 20-minute workouts 3 times a week. That could be 30-minute workouts 2 times a week. If you're really ambitious, you can do 3 30-minute sessions, and that pushes your training volume up to 90 minutes a week. Or you can do 15 minutes a week, 15 minutes of training session 4 times a week. Right, so you can do something along those lines. Or you can do 10-minute workouts 5 days a week, or even 6 if you really want to be ambitious. But what I want to talk about in particular is I want to talk to the people who it's very difficult to stay out of the gym for such long periods of time, right? So even though you say, hey, sure, training only 2 or maybe 3 times a week for 20, 30 minutes, I mean, that works phenomenally, but going to the gym or just working out is therapeutic for me, and it keeps me on track. So I want to work out on a consistent daily basis. Well, you may want to look at this method that I'm about to share with you. Now, this 15-minute workout would be around 2 to 3 exercises per training session. More along the lines, let's say 3 exercises per training session. And this can be done with resistance bands. So you don't even have to go to the gym. So you can train 15 minutes at home, in the park, in the yard. You can train in your bathroom, right? With exercises like these, is very minimal as far as the amount of equipment you need. All you need is about 3 or 4 resistance bands, and that's good enough. And what we implement here is for each exercise, it's one big set segmented into 3 or 4 different portions in the form of a drop set. Let's take a look. So let's start with the push-ups. Let's say you're doing a chest day. And here we got the banded push-up. All you need is just your resistance bands and these handles that I like to do the push-ups with. And the reason why I like to use those handles is you get a really deep stretch at the pec muscle. So if you're really trying to maximize chest building, this is a great way or a great thing to use in your push-ups, right? Because it allows your chest to get lower than your hands. You get a really good stretch in that bottom position. So here it's down, slow and controlled and explosive on the way up, taking the first set all the way to failure, right? Now you're gonna see the real fight here. I'm going all out. See, that's what momentary failure looks like. So now we don't stop here, but instead what we do is we are going to go to the next band down. It's going to be the resistance band that is right below the previous one that I just used, and going right back into it. I'm not even really counting 15 seconds at this point, right? Just get into position and start cranking out more reps. Max effort on each set or each segment of the set, because technically this is still one set, right? Very little rest time in between, maintaining clean form. So no sloppy reps or anything like that. Real strict, clean form, slow all the way down, keeping tension on the muscle, really letting it work. Then after that purple band, you're gonna notch down to the next band beneath that, right? So stepping it down, but still keeping the intensity the same. Okay. And by this point, you may only get about 2, maybe 3 sets or so. This is very intense to do this, because it's a very intense exercise here, or a very intense training mechanism in particular. And you only really need 1 exercise per muscle group. It's really all you need. You choose your best exercise for that muscle group. And so 1 more for the last set, going for the red band. This red band is about 15 to maybe 30 pounds of resistance. It's really not a whole lot of resistance from this band at all. But being this deep into the set, these push-ups feel tremendously difficult. So even if you're a person where you can do body weight push-ups and you can do sets of 100, when you do this, you're gonna realize that 100 reps just ain't gonna cut it. You can see here, I was pretty much shot after that. Next set is the upper right rows, or the upright rows, right? Working on the side delts, right? To really round out those shoulders. Now, with this exercise in particular, this is actually one of my favorite exercises with resistance bands. I don't do this with barbells or dumbbells. I only really do upright rows with resistance bands. And so basically here I can work on my traps and I can work on my side delts at the same time. The thing I like about it is the fact that I'm really focusing on driving the elbows up while pointing the thumbs down, right? So I'm leaving as much of my front delt out of it as possible and really focusing on that side delt. Right? And all quality reps and pushing it to failure. Now this set took me a little bit longer because, well, side delts, I can do a bit more reps. It's not as challenging, right? But it will get just as challenging as those push-ups, the same exact thing. So this is the one exercise for shoulders on this workout. Push-ups, they hit your pecs, they also hit your triceps, as well as hit your front delts. So I don't need to do another front delt exercise, right? So side delts is good enough. Same thing with this band, stepping it down. Same exact thing, right? So getting into position, only a few seconds of rest in between while I set up here. Standing on the bands is pretty much it. Same exact form. All right. Getting those elbows up nice and high. Pausing at the top, getting a nice pause and a squeeze at the top. When you're training with resistance bands, it's all about the feel. Resistance bands are very good for muscle hypertrophy, building muscle, because it's all, you really stimulate the muscle without putting all of this extra wear and tear on your joints. Resistance bands right now is probably my number one training modality, my number one favorite. I'm a big fan of barbell lifts. So it's in my top two, it's going to be barbell and resistance bands are my top two training modalities, but resistance bands I think takes the number one spot just because it's the most convenient, it's the most low risk, very little risk of injury and all that. And you see on that purple band, I went to complete failure. I could barely pull the band above my belly button at that point. Right? Not for a lack of trying. And you can see the effort. You're trying to get every last rep. Right? So it's going to be the same thing now, notching down to the black band on the third set. Right? Same thing, working that form. If you're trying to build your shoulders as well as your trapezes, you're really trying to build the yoke across the top. This is really, really good exercise right here. Right? Those upright rows. Some people, they may have issues in their shoulders when they do it because they're doing, let's say their shoulders are tight or, you know, the way you're doing it, because you're really supposed to lead with the elbows. If you're trying to pull your wrist up, you're going to put extra stress on your shoulders. So when you're doing this exercise, what you want to do is focus on driving the elbows up. Okay. So it's all about that elbow position and then turning those thumbs down and raising the elbows up. Okay. So pretty much same thing here, right? So starting with that green band and down to the purple band and down to the black band. And you see this here, I'm even stalling out. So getting them hitches into movement. And the thing is with resistance bands, there's no momentum. So you can't rock and cheat and carry on like you can with resistance bands. So it forces you to do quality reps. There's no momentum at all whatsoever. Right? So finally getting down to this red band. And at this point, my side delts are completely cooked. I couldn't do another side delt exercise even if I wanted to. Same thing with those push-ups. I couldn't do another chest exercise if I wanted to. I mean, I probably could, but there's not really much of a point in doing it. I'm going to get into that later as to why this works. Because just because you can do more work doesn't mean that you should. For any given muscle group, you really only need about 1 or 2 exercises per muscle group, right? Because each muscle does 2 joint actions. And so at this point, I'm really just selecting the best joint action and maxing out for that movement in particular. You see with this resistance bands, I did a little bit of a pause set in the bottom. So pause, take a breath, and then pull. Right, so even that red band, I got to fight. This is how cooked my rear delts are. That's only like in between 15 to 30 pounds of resistance on that band. Final exercise, bicep curls. So basically, This is like that Monday chest day workout, right? It's chest, shoulders, and biceps, right? Or chest and biceps, real old school with it. So like, let's say you have a chest and biceps day, you have a back and triceps day, you have a quadricep focused day, a shoulder dominant day, and then a hamstring and glute dominant day. And that can be your full week. It's pretty much like an old school bodybuilding split, right? So now here, with this, it's kind of like, you see that fight, you see that trembling. I'm telling you, resistance bands will really make you work. So just because it's not big, bulky weights does not mean that it's easy. It's a lot harder than you think. But with resistance bands, it's not about the weight necessarily. It's all about the tension that you place on the muscle, right? Time under tension. So we want to make the muscle work as much as possible. We want to make the muscle fight, right? This is what it's all about. It's all about intensity. And if you're going to do workouts this short, you really got to max out for intensity. You leave no reps on the table whatsoever. You're trying to get every last drop of effort. And that is how you create that growth response, right? That is how you maximize muscle growth. You got to work, because muscle is not going to grow unless you really work it hard enough to incentivize that growth process. Muscle growth is just a human adaptation. Okay? And human adaptations do not occur in order for you to adapt to something you've already adapted to. Right? You got to adapt to something you haven't adapted to. Like that level of high intensity, high sustained intensity. And so what you do want to do is that you want to stimulate the muscle as much as possible, but do it in a short period of time, because you don't want to train the muscle really intensely over a really prolonged period of time, because that just makes recovery take longer, right? So as far as your training week is concerned, the actual training and the recovery, they compete with each other. More training equals less recovery, right? And less training makes room for more recovery. So out of 7 days out of the week, 24 hours in a day, your recovery and your training has to share those hours. It has to share that time. It is a zero-sum game. And this type of training strategy, which is one of a few, but this type of training is a real solution for people who train way too much and they constantly under recover. All right. So essentially what this is about is changing the proportions of your time, of how you spend your time, and putting more of an emphasis on recovery. If I can get maximum stimulus of the muscle in training in one set, why would I do 5 sets? Why would I do 10? Why would I do 15? Why would I do 20 if one set is good enough? And that's really the question. Why am I going to have my first set training at 50% of intensity, second set training at 65, third set training at 75%, 80, and then fourth set training at 85 to 90%? It's a lot of time wasting. Whereas this method, we're getting straight into the nitty gritty right from the first set. So this is not your typical one set. It's one set segmented into 3 or 4 parts, maximizing time under tension. So the golden rule that everybody knows about is that when it comes to resistance training or hypertrophy training, your sets should be at least 45 seconds long. In this case, this set will last you up to 2, maybe even 3 minutes. And as you get deeper into the set and you do more reps and you make the muscle work even harder, you activate more muscle fibers. You tap into more of that muscle. And that's one of the main things that triggers that muscle growth. I believe we're right here in that red band. And this is it, the home stretch. Now, real quick hint with this exercise, as you do the bicep curl up, turn your thumbs out. As you turn your thumbs out, you'll pull the band apart at the top as you curl up. So it's 2 different forms of movement. So your bicep flexes the elbow, but it also rotates the wrist, right? So if you notice with the bicep, as you rotate the bicep, as I rotate my wrist, the bicep tenses up even more. So that's how you really maximize that bicep curl. If you're looking for a more time efficient training strategy that will free up your schedule or fit conveniently into your schedule while maximizing strength and muscle gains, well, join my 12-week mentorship. In there, I've got my Tribe Strength program, which actually focuses on developing strength while building muscle in the gym with predominantly barbells, resistance bands, and body weight. I also have my Tribe Flex program, which is predominantly at-home training with body weight and resistance bands, where you're focusing on muscle building as well as flexibility, mobility, and stability, all of the abilities. And then I have other things added as well. My Tribe Solid program, which is more of a mix of barbell usage, dumbbells, and resistance bands. But whatever your training modalities are, whatever you have access to, and however much time you have to spare in your week in order to pursue your fitness goals, pretty much everything is covered. And if you have any questions or you need additional support, that's where you would join the Tribe by Noir member support group on my Discord. We've got a whole community there. We share our recipes. We talk about fitness, nutrition, mindset. We communicate back and forth. And we do member exclusive live streams every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We all get into the voice chat, get on video, we do live Q&A, live meal planning, workout strategies, all that kind of stuff. So it's a nice, thriving, growing support group that you would also have access to in the 12-week mentorship. So if that sounds like something you've been looking for that you can really benefit from, definitely hit the link in the description box below, and I'll see you on the other side.